Is this recording? Okay, I hope so. So, bro, I'm sorry it's like a weird angled of a video, but I want to tell you the science behind what actually that doctor was talking about and how a virus actually works and spreads. Why this is so dangerous compared to others. So, forgive me if I fuck up. I'm just kind of spitballing. This is like when you're like, oh, I wish you were here to explain this. This is what I'm doing for you. And why I have qualms with that doctor that you were talking about. All right. So I drew this. This is a really basic chart. This is the breakdown of all life that we know of, right? So we have all life, and then we have the eukaryotes, meaning good cell. Prokaryote means only one cell. So there are organisms that are only one-celled, including bacteria and archaea. Archaea is it's kind of newly distinguished as its own special form of life. Bacteria is very well known. We have a lot of symbiosis with them. Even our mitochondria are considered to be a type of bacteria. In our gut, we have trillions of different kinds of bacteria that we live with every day, right? But from the eukaryotic cells, that's where we got animals, plants, fungi, and protozoa. Protozoa are like these small crystalline structures that are made out of silica, which is a lot like glass, right? And then we have viruses. Viruses are very different than all of the other forms of life because they're so small, but they also contain their own sets of DNA. So it's like, is it living or is it just an encasement for something that is living? This is still undecided. There is no scientific yes or no. Viruses are living. Viruses aren't living. The doctor that you showed me said that viruses aren't living, but they might be considered to be alive, especially for if you consider what we believe that soil is living. In 1/2 gram of soil, there's over 1.5 million viruses, all different genetic codes. So it's up in the air. Science cannot say yes and they cannot say no. They don't know if it's considered living or not. But we do know a lot about them. And so, in general, a virus is just a structure, like some kind of form of something, like a little area. And these lines that I'm drawing are proteins, just small proteins. So like if a bacteria was next to it, it would look like a spaceship landing on planet Earth. Viruses are so small compared to a single-celled organism of bacteria is going to look like planet Earth in comparison to it. So on the outside of our cells, we have these little receivers, right? And some of them have different shapes for different cells. Some of them are like this. Some of them are like this. Some of them are like this. Some of them are like that. All different, right? And these small protein structures, this is a virus. they contain small bundles of squirrely strands of DNA inside of them. And what they do is they have like a little injection needle, you can think of it like a mosquito, that fits inside of the cell. It really depends on the ends of the virus, these ends, on how well they can attach to the surface of our cell walls. Different cells have different like locks and unlocks on the sides of the cell, right? Inside of the cell, there is cytoplasm, which is just kind of like goo, a regular goo. And then we have like the nucleus, right? And we have mitochondria. And we have ribosomes, which is the protein factory, right? So we have the protein factory and we have the energy factory inside of the cell. So what a virus does is it takes a needle, a lot like a mosquito, and if its ends can match up with these little locks, then it can put its needle through the cell wall, right? And it doesn't do anything other than push the DNA strand through that needle into here, right? So once it gets there, say this is the cell, right? And there's little pieces of DNA code of that virus floating inside of it, right? There's these structures, which is like a circle with a little notch in it. And all the floaty stuff inside of the cytoplasm, inside of the cell, the fluid, which we call cytoplasm, that's where DNA amino acids kind of float around. There's these replicators that make proteins. That's like our fingernails, our hair, our bones, our organs, our brain. We all have a genetic code to reproduce these specific proteins to build all of those body parts. And we have a lot of different cells that make different things. Coronavirus is specific to our respiratory cells, our lungs, our lung tissue. It has the key to unlock that, right? So how it works is that virus, I draw them in this little pyramid shape because most of them are in that structure. It's just a structure of proteins that houses some DNA with an injection. It puts that in there. And these guys, the DNA replicators, take strands of DNA, long strings, right? One strand of DNA can wrap around the whole planet, and it fits tightly into one individual cell. And it reproduces a code of adenosine, guanine, thymine, or what's the last one? Guanosine, C. So it's one of those, right? And so once the virus puts its DNA in there, the guy who copies the code of DNA to make the proteins for our body hijacks it. And instead of our normal code, which would be different, like let's just make it a different code, it's supposed to be this code. But it injected its code into here, and so our bodies, our cells, are going to reproduce this code instead, right? And so a bunch of these get made, and they're all over, right? It's going to recopy and recopy and recopy, recopy and recopy and recopy and recopy and recopy and recopy recopy, until this cell is so full of them that it blows up. And all these little copies of the virus go out and they infect a new cell, and it does the same thing. And this happens really, really, really quickly. We're talking with it like the whole process of a virus getting the DNA into the cell, the DNA being replicated wrongly into a new virus, to the cell exploding. That can happen in like 5 minutes. If all the conditions are right, like the right temperature, all that kind of stuff. Right? So that's how viruses work. That's how they spread through the human body. So once these blow up, it is stuck in our respiratory system, right? So if you have a guy, poorly drawn human, and they cough, things like, like Ebola was really bad, and that was like, only a handshake could you contract it from. This one is that you cough once, and these tiny little droplets float in the air. All these float in the air, right? And they're these. That virus that can go infect the cell, right? And they're all floating in the air for 3 fucking hours. Right? Like one guy, just one person coughs. And then another person walks through that, and now they're sick too. And that's why a respiratory virus is the most dangerous of all. It's super dangerous. So then we get into 5G. Right? 5G is our eyeballs can see 3 different wavelengths. Red, green, blue. Here's one wavelength. Here's another wavelength. So this could be the red wavelength. This could be the green one. And this could be the blue one. Cell phone towers work the same way. We could call this 1G and 2G. And this could be 3G. And we already have 4G, right? Which is another wavelength. 5G is just the next level up. It's the same fucking thing, right? So yes, we are electromagnetic beings, right? Our brains fucking react on electrical currents, right? And these may or may not disrupt them. I personally believe they do, just like you, so I'm not dismissing this, but I'm also want the real science to be known, not fucking bullshit people. So, yes, increased health risk. But an increased health risk doesn't make a virus not a virus. This is still a virus. This is still, the science of this is still gonna function the same fucking way, no matter what electrical current you put in there. We need an antivirus. So we need to take this strand of DNA and we need to figure out its code. Is it A, G, C, T, G, G, A, or is it something else? And then once we figure out its code, we can know how to kill it. And that's what we've done with polio. That's what we did with Ebola. That's what we did with swine flu, measles and mumps, MMR, tuberculosis, all kinds of them. Like, health. So, maybe at best, the argument is that this extra frequency might be causing a new outbreak. It's not the cause. Potentially, maybe, it might potentially be exacerbating the problem. But it does no effect on whether a virus is a virus or not. You can't make a virus with it come true or fucking weird shit. It's just one more of what we already have. And we've had 4G for fucking 3 years. Nobody bitched about that. We've had 3G since maybe like 2010. Nobody bitched about that. It's just one more of the same shit we already have. And all testing, all evidence is a big fat unknown. We don't know. It may be safe, it may not be safe. I lean towards that it isn't safe and that it is unregulated. But that has no correlation to fucking a virus and how we should behave during a virus outbreak. It is a totally different topic. It's the same thing, like, maybe you have cancer, maybe you have a heart condition. Everybody would be more at risk. So, if 5G was the cause of corona, right? Then only patients from corona are going to die. Right? If 5G is just generally bad for health, then everyone will die. Right? If 5G is so bad, how come we are saying twice daily cases in New York State? Twice as many people get it every day in New York, right? That is exponential. That's a graph that would look like this. Right? In New York, cancer isn't doing that. Cancer's like this. Heart attacks in New York, normal. If 5G weakens and causes coronavirus, or if 5G weakens the immune system, how come we are not seeing any influx of any other disease than coronavirus? Coronavirus is the only one. The reason that we are seeing that huge spike and increase in so many deaths is because of science. The cell infects, it explodes, it reproduces really quickly. Bam, bam, bam. The virus goes in, copies the DNA with our own DNA copiers. It fills the cell so full that it cannot contain anymore, and it bursts open, and then the same copies come through. And then somebody who has it coughs in the air, somebody walks through it, and they have it again. And that rate is then exponential. And then 5G is just like a fucking radio frequency with no known proof of anything. Yeah, we can infer some stuff, and for years and years and years, we've known that radio frequencies can impact us, but to the extent of a virus like this, fuck no, that can't. It can't. And so, my main argument with that doctor that you told me about is what about influenza? What about a million others? Swine flu. I had swine flu when I was living in Arizona. I had swine flu. They gave me a bottle of codeine cough syrup and I slept for a week and I was fine. Right? But there was no rollout of any fucking technology then. But an epidemic still happened. Viruses just happen. It's a part of our life and our world. And we need to treat them as what they are. We need to find an antivirus. And we can do that. But it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of computer power. We did that for polio. And I'm grateful that Tallulah doesn't have polio. I'm grateful that Lily and Daphne have their measles and mumps shot. Because that's how it works. It takes that strand of DNA and it says, be prepared for this. You cannot fit on our receptors anymore or we're just going to kill you off, right? And they're really, really, really small. So they float in the air. I'm serious. Like somebody can go in the grocery store, cough. 3 hours later, I could walk through that same cloud and the virus can still be in the air and get into my lungs. And that's pretty fucking scary. To me, it's scarier than 5G. 5G, maybe. And most likely does weaken our immune system. But it's inconsistent. Even like that doctor said, it depends on how many metals are in your body. So that depends a lot on what you eat. So like if you ate like a lot of halibut, for instance, you would have accumulated more mercury in your body. Bioaccumulation is what we call it. That is like impossible to tell through a demographic of a population. There's no research on that. There's only inference. So like there's only people who are like, I've got a hunch. But nobody can derive a p-value, like something statistical, like out of 4,000 people, this many people had this reaction to this exact thing, and this is the number that says yes or no. Nobody's done that for 5G. Not even close. In Norway, they have been trying to do some experiments with it, but there's no results. Nothing is published. Nobody knows. So it's kind of, especially right now, it's like, no, quit fucking freaking out about 5G. Freak out about us not working as hard as we can to make a vaccine. Because we could be working harder. If everybody who was complaining about 5G complained about an antivirus not being made, then we'd already have one by now. That's kind of how it is, in my opinion. It's like, real shit is real shit until you fucking talk and show me something. Fucking, nobody can talk. It's just one more frequency of the same shit we already fucking have going on. Like, it's not that different. It's not. I really think that there are some cancer clusters around some cell phone towers, but it's not some big plot or ploy, or it's not fucking aliens. Like, we have outbreaks of diseases all the fucking time. Which ones do or do not get publicized? are based on public fear and manipulation. And if you buy into all this shit about it, then they fucking won. They got your fear. But if you fucking look at the science of an actual viral outbreak, which we are going through, and it's very real, then we can just take it as a viral outbreak. How about we just support some scientists to make an anti-vax, and we can get over it. Like, your newborn is, hopefully, by the time your newborn is born, there's a vaccination. And your kid is going to have to get that vaccination just along with measles and mumps and just with polio and like all the same kid shots that any kid gets. They're going to need this shot because even infants are dying. There was an infant who died in Texas from COVID today. So it's not just old people. There's plenty of people who are 25 to 40 who are dying from this. It's a real virus. And 5G is not a part of it. If it is, it's very minimal. Because there are outbreaks of 5G, or there are outbreaks of COVID in places where there is no 5G. You know? And that doctor was like, they put 20,000 satellites and surrounded and blanketed our whole globe. And then 3 minutes later, he's like, it was 100,000 satellites. It's like, dude, you don't got your numbers together. Find me any fucking certified paper that tells me how many satellites are in the app in space for 5G. 20,000 is even way too much. Like, you could make it happen with like 20 of them. Even all of the GPS satellites in the whole world, right? Russia owns like 19. The US has like 13, and then China has like 5. You really think there's 20,000 satellites out there just for one network? Fuck no. And that's not even how the science of it works. It's not. And for a doctor in the same paragraph to say there's 20,000 satellites for this infrastructure, and then to miscommunicate in his own head a few sentences later and go, for the same situation, no, there's 100,000 satellites. It's like, pick a number, dumbass. Because you are not communicating anything scientific if you're just loosey-goosey throwing shit out there. If you're a PhD, you want to be taken seriously, you have your facts ready before you go on stage. If you're going to talk about this, you better fucking, like, this is big time. Communicating the real science to the world versus just some guy talking. And even if you have a PhD, you can be just some guy talking. You know? If Shauna went up on stage and had no references ready, if Shauna was saying way different numbers twice in one interview, would you trust him? No, nobody would. So to conclude, the virus is real. We need an antivirus. 5G is kind of a thing, but not nearly what people are making it. So just calm